So Dr. Yemi Akande Bartsch, welcome to the TEDx stage. Give her another. You know, you've been an inspiration to me for your leadership, and I know many of the people in this audience and around our region. But before you arrived here, you had a huge arc of doing amazing things, including things like teaching multicultural communication and organizational behavior at John Carroll University, writing an incredible civic education program in Cleveland, and all kinds of things that we don't have time to talk about. But you blossomed when you arrived here in St. Louis, and your leadership of our region's premier leadership development organization has been amazing. You've graduated more than 11,000 senior leaders as well as emerging leaders, giving folks the skills, the knowledge, helping them build the networks that they need to create amazing positive impact in our community. And the ripples continue, they continue. And I really am excited to explore a little bit about kind of what got you here today and where the discovery happened of your propensity and your talent for leadership and connecting with people, and where this leadership journey really started for you. Can you think of an instance where you started to kind of, work that muscle?
Yes, I can. First of all, thank you for the warm welcome. It's a privilege to be here in the TEDx space, and this is a long time dream for me. So if you're out there and you have dreams, it can happen. When I think of when did this all start, how much time do we have? Just kidding. But truthfully, it actually started when I was 6 years old, when my parents moved from Louisville, Kentucky to Ogbomoso, Nigeria. And at that time, I did not know a single soul in Ogbomoso, Nigeria, where my parents had moved. And what was interesting about it was we lived on this campus where there were a number of residential housing where the students lived. And I needed friends. And what does 6-year-old Yemi think is the best thing that she could do? Granted, the times are different. Was to go to these residential housing where there were couples living, and I went from door to door, knocked and said, "Hi, I'm Yemi Akande. I live down the street. My parents are there, but I was wondering whether you have any children that I could live." And some of them did, and when they called their kids to come and meet me, I was joyful because this was a courageous soul-searching venture for me, on search for friends. And if they didn't have kids, you know what I did? I would ask them about their garden. How is it growing? And that was essentially how I started to make friends in this city that my parents had moved to. And it's something that has been a defining part of who I am to any city that I've come to call home. And I'm looking in the audience here, and I see a few friends out there. Hi, thanks for coming. Really great to see you. But I would say that that's where it all started for me.
I love the image of a little 6-year-old girl in a strange town, in a strange country, knocking on doors to make friends. I think we see Yemi right there. We see Yemi right there.
So true.
The propensity to reach out, knock on doors, to build relationships, even if they didn't have a child. Let's talk about the garden.
That is true.
So how did that carry through when you came back to the U.S.? You obviously came back to the U.S. Tell us about that.
Yes, it was my coming to America story, but not quite like it was in the movies. But what was interesting about it is it actually started with my parents' ecosystem of relationships. My parents wanted their children to study abroad, and my dad at that time had met a professor from the small liberal arts Christian college in Bolivar, Missouri. Everybody knows where Bolivar, Missouri is,
Bolivar.
right? Yes,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
Sure. For anybody from Bolivar? Here?
Yes. And what was interesting about it is my sister and I, we applied to the school and were admitted. And my parents, because of their relationship, that's how they found out about the school. And it was really great to be in Bolivar, Missouri, because it taught you about American values. You know, I would say, you know, certainly good American values, interesting and challenging American values, but it served as the foundation for really understanding the larger framework of what it means to live, work, and play in America. And it's interesting, there are a number of folks from way back then that live right here in St. Louis that I've had an opportunity to interact with them.
Wow. So because of relationships, and the relationships in this case that your parents built, you came from Nigeria to not New York, not Chicago, not
No.
LA, not St. Louis,
No.
Bolivar, Missouri.
Bolivar, Missouri.
Which was just the right place
Oh, it was
for
hot.
you to
Yes, exactly.
for you to thrive.
You know what was interesting is I grew up, and I'm dating myself here, watching Fame. You remember that show? And so coming to America for me, I was thinking, I'm gonna dance forever. Imagine my shock. We prayed forever.
That's at
Yes.
the after party. The after party.
The after party. Yes.
So, you know, we're thinking of you and your skills and your talent as a leader and as developing leaders, and you're really talking to us about relationships and relationship building and building connections. And it seems like, you know, with all of the digital media we have at our command, aren't we all in connection all over the place? I mean, we all have so many friends on, you know, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and whatever. Aren't we all kind of hitting that button pretty hard of connection?
We are hitting that button pretty hard, but we're not hitting it authentically. You know, Steve, I've known you for quite some time, and we have shared friends in common on any type of social media. But here's the point. People are mistaking connection for community. Yes, indeed. I see relationships as a currency to one's success. And if I look at my career, I've been successful because of the relationships that I've taken the time, that I've built the trust with individuals in a way that I'm able to collaborate with them, in a way that we're able to create and make change. It really is that simple. And if we can just take a little bit more time and not be transactional in our relationships, we can move ourselves further along. Take, for example, the recent tornado. I remember picking up my phone and calling friends just to check on them, whether they were okay. A number of them were okay, and they were grateful for my call. But I didn't stop there. I called 3 days later. I called 5 days later, during the quiet times, just to check on them. Those are the most important times where people know that the relationship that you have with them is beyond transactional. And that really needs to become the leadership innovation in the polarized world that we live in, relationships.
So yeah. So I get how, like, building real relationship as opposed to just a transactional connection is really critical in a lot of ways. Help us understand a little bit about what that has to do with leadership. I think at least one image I have in my mind, and I think a lot of us do maybe from our culture, is, the leader is out there out front alone, waving the flag on the hill, leading the charge. So there's there's the loneliness of the leader. So
Absolutely.
how does relationship building and trust building, how does that connect to your view of leadership?
So I look at that as part of a master leadership boot camp of leadership. It's important. I'm looking in the audience and I see my good friend Maria Briggs. And a couple of weeks ago, we did one of those walking exercise meetings. You know what those are. About 7:30. You say, let's go and let's do a power walk. And you're like, what was I thinking? It's 79 degrees. But you know what's interesting is we had the most profound conversation. We solved maybe all about the world's problem, which I would say you should wait and see. But the fact that we were able to have those conversations on those topics in a way that was bridge building, in a way that we could be courageous with each other. I have to tell you, when I went home that day, sweat and all, I had solutions to some of the challenges that I had that particular day. And it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't nurtured that relationship, if it wasn't one of those transactional relationships. I always lead with, what's going on in your world today? Not what you do. What are you challenged by? And what bridge are you building? If more of us can do that, I believe we've got it all solved.
So I'm hearing you say that it's not just that the relationship and the trust and the sharing of insights and challenges enables you to be a better leader necessarily with that person or others, but it almost fuels your additional insights and energy and ability to take the next step as a leader.
It's a leadership lesson. It's a continuous improvement process that never ends, at least for me.
So I know one of your views of leadership is that no matter what your title is, everyone is a leader or has the capacity to be a leader in their lives. So if you had one challenge, one bold challenge you could give folks in the audience, the folks watching us, to take that next step in their own journeys, what would that be?
That's a great question. I would say go first. Go first in being kind. Go first when, it's so easy these days when you can easily type up a thank you letter after you've met with someone. Why don't you go the traditional way and write them a note? Y'all know what cards are. You can pick those up, right? Yeah. Write them a thank you note. Recall something from that meeting, because I tell you what, because it's not expected, it is always appreciated. So try that and see what difference that can make in your relationships.
Wow. Pen and paper, huh?
Yes, I do it every day. Yes, okay. I do it every day, absolutely. Yes.
So, we here in St. Louis and in our nation, in our world, obviously, you're facing a lot of challenges, polarization, many difficulties. So, how's that little girl doing? What's that little girl seeing in the world around us right now?
The little girl is still there. She is still asking those courageous questions, those difficult questions, and sometimes those questions, how's your garden doing? But more importantly, she's become bolder. She's become brave. She has found herself at a number of different tables, and she's had an opportunity to even build tables, convene tables that don't exist and invite and bring people along. But what's more important to that little girl is that now she's a grown woman, and the difference is she now has a microphone and she's in front of an audience.
So setting the table and inviting others to the table. Dr. Yemi Akande Barch.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.